matter, witnesses are in person. Members have the option to appear either in person or virtually, or even both if they choose. The committee meets today to consider two nominations: Parisa Salehi to be Inspector General of the Export-Import Bank, Brian Tomney to be Inspector General of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. We congratulate the nominees. We thank them for appearing today and for their willingness to serve in these important roles. I want to welcome their family and friends in attendance, and I've met them watching and those watching from home. And each nominee certainly feel free at the beginning or during your testimony to introduce family members either here or watching from somewhere else by name. It's important the Biden administration is working to fill Inspector General vacancies. These positions are vital to making our government work for people, to ensure tax dollars are put to good use for the people whom we serve. The Trump administration took unprecedented steps, unprecedented in the sense that presidents of neither party had done this in the past, to undermine IGs across the executive branch. They either sidelined them or fired them without cause simply for doing their jobs, for showing independence, which is their job, for pursuing the facts, which is also their job. Through audits and evaluations and investigations, inspectors general offices play pivotal roles in uncovering waste and abuse and fraud, ensuring American tax dollars are protected. The nominees today possess the independence, the honesty, the integrity qualities we all want and expect in an inspector general. They need to take on these the things they need to take on these critical roles. Both nominees appearing before us are clearly qualified. Ms. Salehi currently serves as the Chief of Staff to the Inspector General of the Department of State. She assists the IG on enterprise risk management, oversees the congressional and public affairs sections of the IG office. Prior to joining state, she served in the USAID Inspector General office. Previously, Ms. Salehi spent more than 4 years at XM, Office of Inspector General, serving in various roles, including as acting Inspector General from 2018 to 19. If confirmed, she'd be rejoining an office she's familiar with. Her experience with the bank's charter and its operations will enhance that office's work. When she served as the acting XM Inspector General, my office found she was responsive to requests when we needed additional information concerning her office's investigations and reports. XM, as we know, is vital to manufacturers in Ohio and Montana and Pennsylvania and throughout the country. It will be Ms. Salehi's job to help ensure that the bank works efficiently. She'll help the bank comply fully with its charter and other statutory requirements. I believe she's well prepared to step into this job immediately. Welcome to the committee. From 2006 to 17, Mr. Tomney served in various roles at DOJ. From 2006 to 9, he served as trial attorney in the Justice Department's Criminal Division, where he investigated drug trafficking and narco-terror organizations. He served as counsel for the rule of law in the Office of the Deputy Attorney General. From 2009 to 14, he engaged with teams of federal prosecutors and attorneys in efforts to root out corruption and support the rule of law in Afghanistan and Iraq. He went on to serve in several roles, including Assistant Deputy Attorney General. Mr. Tomney has a proven commitment to service, even in the toughest situations. Early in his career, he spent more than a decade as a paramedic and a firefighter. He'll bring those same values with him to this job, ensuring that FHFA is working for all homeowners and all renters. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Tomney. We're glad you're here today, too. Thanks to both of you for your willingness to serve. I look forward to your testimonies today. Ranking Member Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Salehi and Mr. Tomney, welcome to both of you and your families. I commend you both for your commitment to public service and your willingness to serve in these important roles to which you have been nominated. Mr. Tomney, if confirmed, you'll have a challenging job. The GSEs led us into the 2008 financial crisis through their excessive risk-taking, and Congress established FHFA as a tough regulator to ensure that that would never happen again. But instead of being the cop on the beat, the Biden administration seems intent on turning FHFA into a co-conspirator with the GSEs. FHFA has taken a number of troubling steps to extend credit to risky borrowers and undermine the GSE's financial condition. It has proposed reductions in the GSE's capital requirements. It's lowered guarantee fees and has said it is considering further cuts. It's suspended restrictions on the GSE's risk layering and acquisition of investor and second home loans. It's relaxed the GSE's underwriting requirements. and it's replaced much of the FHFA senior leadership. Meanwhile, housing prices, of course, have skyrocketed, an astonishing 18.5% in just the last 12 months. So I think it's a question of when, not if, these good times for the housing market come to an end, and I worry that FHFA's enabling of risky lending, together with the administration's total disinterest in recapitalizing the GSEs through outside private capital, has placed the GSEs on a path that could well lead to another round of taxpayer bailouts. Mr. Tomney, if that were not already enough, your job will be made more challenging by an administration that has no discernible housing policy besides giving mortgages to as many borrowers as possible with little regard to their ability to repay. Housing is expensive in part because our housing policies subsidize demand while ignoring supply constraints. Our Democrat colleagues' reckless tax and spend bill makes little effort to increase housing supply. The Senator Schumer earmark, or the Schumark as I call it, as discussed on the October 21st hearing, would spend up to $40 billion renovating New York City's existing public housing. Much of the other housing funds would go to imprudent down payment assistance and rental vouchers that add further to housing demand. The bill even creates an astonishing invitation to mortgage fraud by making $15 billion available to borrowers who sign an attestation, truthfully or not, that they are, quote, first-generation homebuyers, end quote. Amazingly, you can qualify so long as your parents do not currently own a home and you have not owned a home in the last 3 years. So much for first-generation homebuyer. We need to try something different than the same housing policies that caused the 2008 financial crisis. To that end, in March, I proposed principles to guide housing finance reform discussions. The administration, however, has shown no interest in real reform and even missed a September 30th deadline to report on its plan. Mr. Tomney, given the path the administration has put on us, I suspect you might soon be investigating how we eagerly double down on 50 years of failed housing policy and thereby predictably led the GSE into what could be another round of taxpayer bailouts. Now, turning to Ex-Im, Ex-Im claims that it only takes risks that private lenders are unable or unwilling to take. But we should stop right there and ask ourselves, if private lenders are unwilling or unable to take a risk, why should taxpayers be forced to take that risk? But yet, at the same time, Ex-Im also claims it only makes safe bets. It's obviously impossible to do both. Ex-Im can't only take transactions so risky that no one else will do them, and at the same time, only be doing safe transactions. The fact is, Ex-Im wins business by systematically underpricing the risk it takes. That's why borrowers go to Ex-Im instead of any number of private lenders that will not offer deals on the same terms as Ex-Im will. That's why our largest banks go to Ex-Im for loan guarantees. The Ex-Im terms are too good to be true, at least in the private sector. And it's important to note that the vast majority of American exports get done without Ex-Im support. We've reviewed annual export data from 2007 through 2020. In that period, the highest percent of U.S. exports using Ex-Im financing was in 2012, and it was 2.3%. And that was when Ex-Im had everything going for it. It was fully operational, it had a quorum on its board, it had not reached its lending limit. The reality is, we're the world's second largest exporter of goods behind only China. We lead the world in value-added exports, and we do it almost entirely without Ex-Im financing. Not only is Ex-Im financing generally not needed, but it's often nothing more than crony capitalism providing taxpayer-financed subsidies to some of the world's largest companies who have plenty of access to private capital. Ex-Im's recent deal guaranteeing an $82 million loan from J.P. Morgan to Qantas for the purpose of buying jet engines from GE is just a recent example. Generally, the same giant lenders, exporters, and foreign companies, often state-owned, benefit from Ex-Im, while taxpayers take the risk. There's also a history of waste, fraud, and abuse at Ex-Im. Ex-Im's IGs have identified numerous concerning practices at the bank over the years. If confirmed, Ms. Salehi will have an important responsibility to serve as an independent watchdog. Mr. Chairman, I look forward to hearing from today's nominees.
Thank you, Senator Toomey. Would the witnesses please rise, raise your right hand? Will you swear to affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God? Do you agree or to appear and testify before any duly constituted committee of the Senate? Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome you both to the committee. As I said, if you'd like to introduce family and friends, proceed. Ms. Salehi, please begin your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Brown, Ranking Member Toomey, and members of the committee. I'm honored to appear before you today as the President's nominee to be the Inspector General of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. I would not be here today without the generous support of my family, friends, and colleagues. I would particularly like to recognize my mother, whose hard work and determination has afforded me many opportunities. She grew up far away from this free land in a place where she was legally required to get her husband's permission to do many simple things, like travel. Through selfless acts, she ensured that her kids would have better and brighter life choices than the ones available to her. I would also especially like to thank my partner, Burke, who is here with me today and has been supportive of my professional growth for the past 18 years. I have also benefited from the wisdom of many formal and informal mentors along the way who have graciously invested in and supported me. The list is so long, so I can only name a few. My sister Atusa, Peter Briggs, Jeannie and Kent Hendrickson, Allison Lerner, and Mark Greenblatt. I have learned many life lessons from all of them, which I hope to pass forward. If confirmed, I will be living proof of the American story, that if you work hard, you will one day go places no one thought possible. I am a first-generation American and very proud of it. Common to many first-generation Americans, my professional path has not been easy or without sacrifices. To know that someone like me can appear before you is the fulfillment of the American dream, my dream. With many years of experience, both in public and private sector, I believe I offer unique qualifications to lead as the IG for EXAM. My experiences as counsel at the Export-Import Bank IG and subsequent services as EXAM acting IG allows me to hit the ground running. I have learned from strong leaders at the offices of Inspectors General at U.S. Agency for International Development and the Department of State, where I currently serve as the Chief of Staff. Both agencies have taught me important lessons on effective oversight. If confirmed, I hope to build on that foundation. I appreciate EXAM's important mission of supporting American jobs by facilitating the export of goods and services. IGs play an important role in conducting reliable, objective, fact-based oversight. Should I be confirmed, I am committed to conducting audits and investigations relating to the programs and operations of EXAM as required by the law and serving in this role independently with fairness and integrity. I will seek to bring positive change to EXAM programs through constructive relationships with EXAM leadership. As acting IG, I invested considerable time in building those relationships, and I will continue to do so if confirmed, while maintaining the independence of my office. Inspectors General play a vital role in rooting out bad actors by partnering with other stakeholders, government agencies at the federal and state level, and by promoting a whole-of-government approach, we can make progress in this effort and foster trust in government programs. Bad actors can erode trust in federal programs, which can prove fatal to the long-term success of any agency program. If confirmed, I will ensure that my office helps deter those actors by maximizing accountability. If confirmed, I will uphold the IG Act's dual reporting requirements to keep the agency head and Congress fully and currently informed about problems and deficiencies relating to the agency programs and operations, and commit to direct and transparent communication with congressional stakeholders. EXAM's Inspector General position has been vacant since June 2014, the longest-running IG vacancy in the federal government. Even in the absence of the permanent IG, OIG professionals at EXAM have worked hard to advance the mission and conduct meaningful oversight. I acknowledge their accomplishments and dedication under these challenging conditions and would welcome the opportunity to work hand in hand with them, support them, facilitate their work, and bring about the stability of a permanent IG should I be confirmed. In closing, I appreciate the opportunity to give back and serve the American people and the country that has made my first-generation American story possible. Thank you, and I would be pleased to respond to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Salehi. Mr. Tomney, welcome.
Chairman Brown, Ranking Member Tomney, thank you for the opportunity to appear before the committee today while I sit before you as nominee for Inspector General to the Federal Housing Finance Agency. And thank you to President Biden for nominating me to this very important position in government service. At the outset, I would like to thank my family members watching remotely and those here, including my son, Michael, who I love very much, and my brother, Chris, who honorably served 32 years in the United States Coast Guard. My two older sisters, Laura and Karen, cannot be here, but I appreciate all of their support throughout the years. Serving the public is a rewarding career path. However, it often comes at the expense of missed family holiday gatherings, weddings, Little League games, and school events. And although my parents are both deceased, I believe my core value of service to others emanated from them. For over 30 years, I have served the public in roles offering an intimate view of challenges faced by ordinary Americans. As a young man serving as a paramedic firefighter, I cared for people experiencing homelessness, mental illness, and domestic violence. This work established a foundation of care, compassion, and empathy towards all people that permeates my professional career. During my service at the Department of Justice, I held individuals accountable for violating our nation's law. I proudly led many brave servants engaged in supporting rule of law efforts overseas following the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. And I reimagined an initiative that sought to revisit prison sentences for certain individuals sentenced under drug laws of the 1990s. Collectively, this arc of public service has helped shape who I am personally and professionally. I am a thoughtful, independent, and objective seeker of facts. I believe that government service should embrace and promote the value of transparency and integrity. And I believe there is no greater honor than service to the American people. In my private sector, many of these common threads readily transferred to compliance and ethics teams I've worked with in the financial services industry, and particularly integrity, accountability, and transparency. As Chief of Staff in the Compliance and Ethics Department of a Fortune 100 company, I helped ensure the department maintained sound financial practices and used strategic communications to support departmental operations. Furthermore, I've developed, grown, and led teams enhancing regulatory and board reporting. I also challenged the business to strengthen internal controls, refined independent testing, and helped ensure the proper remediation of any findings. These combined efforts focused on guiding teams to be well-managed, efficient, and effective. Currently, I lead the Office of Corporate Investigations. Here, my teams conduct rigorous and independent investigations into allegations of insider fraud, whistleblower claims, and unethical business practices. FHFA has a vital role in maintaining the stability and liquidity of the mortgage market, and it furthers equal and affordable access to America's housing market. That is why it is critical to the American people that the Office of the Inspector General fulfill its core mission, which is to promote economy, efficiency, and effectiveness while also protecting FHFA and the entities it regulates against fraud, waste, and abuse. Since 1978, Inspectors General have been independent, objective, and nonpartisan finders of fact. The key to their success is the ability to remain independent and objective. Put it simply, to call balls and strikes. Their duty to report to Congress is an equally important function driving transparency in how our government's departments and agencies are functioning. The independence of an ID does not make them immune from accountability for their actions. IGs must set the bar and hold themselves to the highest standards of ethics and integrity. If confirmed as Inspector General, I will exercise my duties with the same level of independence and objectivity that has defined my entire professional career. I will ensure FHFA OIG conducts its audits, evaluations, and investigations in a fair and rigorous manner. I commit to a transparent and responsive relationship with this committee and Congress. I will endeavor to develop a productive, thoughtful working relationship with the FHFA director, as an effective relationship will best serve the agency, the entities it supervises, and the American public. Moreover, I will lead the FHFA OIG with candor, transparency, and humility. For me and many in my family, the call to public service is strong. We have a long tradition of military, government, first responder, and other frontline workers who, like me, believe caring for and protecting our fellow citizens is the highest honor. My 3 decades of public service share several common themes: independence, integrity, and a belief in the honor of service to the American people. If confirmed, I very much look forward to the opportunity to serve this great country once again. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tomney. Ms. Salehi, XM, as OIG has previously worked to help the bank reduce fraud and fraud risk. I applaud that focus, as the risk of fraud is a significant challenge for financial institutions, both in the public and the private sectors. We know the XM OIG has also helped identify limited instances when exterior parties have attempted to perpetrate fraud against XM, the banks that partner with XM to lend to exporters and U.S. taxpayers. So talk, if you would, about your approach to reducing fraud when evidence of fraud is identified, and how your professional experience has helped to ensure that XM IG's office can effectively work with DOJ and other law enforcement.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the question. I have over 25 years of experience in white-collar crime or government investigations, both in the federal government and in private practice. When bad actors penetrate the programs of any U.S. government agency, it erodes the trust of the American people. And so my approach, if confirmed going in, would be to take a whole-of-government approach by engaging with all the stakeholders that are necessary to deter waste, fraud, and abuse. By that, I mean I would be working with the Department of Justice, prosecutors, and attorneys. I would, of course, be working with the law enforcement partners, other government agencies, such as Office of Special Counsel, Office of Government Ethics, or others that have a stake in the game, and to ensure that that we can deter penetration into those government programs. Additionally, I will be working, if confirmed, with my XM OIG staff and look for opportunities where we can introduce internal control measures to the management at the Export-Import Bank of the United States, so that they can partner with us in preventing fraud altogether.
Thank you. Mr. Tomney, oversight of FHFA and the GSEs involves a wide range of issues, from lender fraud to agency operations and cybersecurity. How do you prioritize issues for evaluation and investigation in that agency?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. If confirmed, one of the first areas that I will get into is assessing how the agency has been prioritizing those decisions. Historically, they have looked in 4 general buckets, including effective and enhanced supervision of the entities, conservatorship operations, the risk posed by counterparties and third parties, and importantly, the cyber concerns. I think once I'm able to get in there to see how they have distributed their resources and human capital, I'll be in a better position to assess exactly how to prioritize. But certainly matters such as cybersecurity is certainly a whole of government concern that will be certainly one of my priorities that I'll be looking at.
As more and more of the mortgage process moves online, what new challenges do the GSEs and FHFA face?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The challenges are broad, particularly as policymakers weigh different policies. As an OIG, I would envision ensuring robust oversight of whichever tact policymakers take, and use the opportunity to produce meaningful reports that can help stakeholders, such as Congress and the agency, to understand the trade-offs that they may be making with those decisions.
Thank you. Senator Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Salehi, during your time as acting IG at XM, the IG office conducted an evaluation of EXIM's policies and procedures to ensure the bank does not crowd out the private sector and only supports transactions where EXIM financing is necessary. This, I believe, is known as EXIM's additionality policy. EXIM was found to have insufficient record keeping in some respects, which increased the risk that the bank might not consider all relevant information about replacing private capital when it approved transactions. In May of 2020, the Board of Directors strengthened its policies to protect against crowding out private sector capital. It's yet to be seen if the new policies are being properly observed. Will you commit to conduct another evaluation to determine if EXIM is in fact complying with its updated policies and procedures that are designed to prevent crowding out of private sector capital? And also, will you commit to reviewing the updated policies themselves to ensure that they actually are achieving EXIM's statutory mandate not to replace private capital?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. If confirmed as the IG for the Export-Import Bank of the United States, it would be my job to be looking at policies and procedures of the bank and reporting them to you and to the head of agency and the American public in a transparent fashion. Of course, I know that this issue of additionality is one that is very important to you, and I would be happy to meet with you and your staff to understand your concerns better and take those concerns to my staff and consult with my staff as we set about our work and do our risk analysis of our priorities.
You would acknowledge that it would fall under your purview to determine if these policies are being properly implemented?
Yes.
Okay. In September of 2019, EXIM approved the second largest loan in its history. It was a $4.7 billion loan project for an LNG development in Mozambique. Unfortunately, in that same year, we learned of deep corruption in the government of Mozambique that extended all the way to the former finance minister, who had been arrested in a $2 billion fraud and money laundering scheme that directly hurt U.S. investors. Now, to be clear, Mr. Chang was out of office by the time EXIM agreed to the LNG deal. But I just think that the Chang affair revealed deep and pervasive corruption within the government of Mozambique, and I worry about whether EXIM is taking adequate steps to ensure that its financing deals are not subject to some kind of corruption. Can you commit to doing everything that you can to ensure that EXIM does not unwittingly enrich corrupt officials, particularly in countries with long histories of corruption?
Thank you, Senator. Rooting out bad actors and investigating fraud, waste, and abuse is the core of every OIG mission, and I commit to doing just that if confirmed.
Thank you. Mr. Tomney, if confirmed, one of your responsibilities will be to investigate mortgage fraud that affects Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. In the lead up to the 2008 financial crisis, the GSEs got into the business of acquiring so-called no-doc and low-doc loans where the borrower simply attested to his or her eligibility without any independent verification. Well, predictably, some borrowers lied about their income and other key factors considered in the underwriting, and predictably, many of those borrowers eventually defaulted, resulting in significant losses at the GSEs that were then borne by the taxpayers. Unfortunately, our Democratic colleagues are pursuing this reckless tax and spending bill that will return the GSEs to the pre-crisis practice of relying on unverified borrower attestations. It's inevitable in my mind that some borrowers, once again, will misrepresent their circumstances in order to get, for instance, down payment assistance. If you're confirmed, Mr. Tomney, and if this bill becomes law, will you commit to vigorous investigations of borrowers who knowingly lie about their eligibility for down payment assistance on GSE-acquired loans?
Thank you, Ranking Member Toomey, for the question. Yes, if confirmed, I believe one of the key roles of Office of Inspector General is to engage in robust enforcement efforts. And this would certainly be an area that, should that law pass, I believe would come under our purview. And like we have seen with a lot of the stimulus investigations going on, we will continue to engage in robust enforcement efforts.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would just point out, if past practices by some at the Department of Justice and some at the CFPB are any indication, if I were a lender and a borrower lied on his application and I extended credit in part because of the lie, or I should say relying on the lie, I'd be worried that I'd be the one that'd be subject to investigation and made to face the consequences. But I appreciate your answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Toomey. Senator Menendez from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tomney, I was pleased to read in the FHFA Office of Inspector General's annual plan for fiscal year 22 that the office you're nominated to lead is planning an audit of, quote, FHFA's initiatives responding to the executive order on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. And given the immense disparities faced by minority home buyers, I believe it's imperative that FHFA does everything in its power to promote racial equity in its role as a regulator of housing finance. Do you agree that reviewing FHFA's racial equity initiatives will make the agency more effective?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I agree that there have been new discussions and focus in that area, which is certainly the purview of the policymakers. And to the extent that more focus is paid in that area, I certainly commit to engage in robust oversight of that activity so that we can provide information to key stakeholders such as Congress and yourself, as well as the agency, to understand the courses of action that they're taking.
So you're going to, if you're confirmed, you're going to follow through on what the FHFA already has said that they intend to do, no?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, to the extent that the OIG has committed to engaging in that, yes.
Well, the FHFA plays a critical role in maintaining a fair and healthy housing finance market. And a critical part of that mission is ensuring that all home buyers, regardless of race, are treated fairly. So will you commit to making this review a top priority if confirmed?
Senator, yes.
All right. Now, I was glad to see that the FY 2022 FHFA plan contained a planned evaluation of, quote, the FHFA's efforts to identify and address potential appraisal bias and valuation disparities. Now, home ownership is the cornerstone of intergenerational wealth in our country, particularly for low and middle income Americans. However, home ownership can only lead to wealth building if homes are properly appraised and valued. Will you commit to making this review a top priority?
Senator, thank you for the question. I certainly commit to, if confirmed, in the office, rolling up my sleeves and making sure that that is addressed quickly.
Well, I appreciate hearing that because minority homes, we know, are not properly appraised and valued thanks to numerous studies, including one from Freddie Mac showing that about 15.5% of single-family properties in majority Latino and 12.5% in majority Black census tracts are appraised lower than their contracted price compared to 7.4% in white neighborhoods. That is a fundamental, dramatic difference. That's why these types of audits would be so important. So if confirmed, what will you do to ensure that FHFA's new appraisal policies are effective and not harmful to minority home buyers?
Thank you, Senator. To the extent that those policies are implemented, I will ensure that the office follows through with doing rigorous assessments, looking at metrics and models to ensure that they're producing meaningful reports that are helpful to all of the stakeholders, including the American public.
Ms. Salehi, EXIM has always found ways in which it can improve. I believe it has ways, I should say, in which it can improve when it comes to racial equity. For instance, the most recent EXIM competitiveness report noted that only 14.6% of EXIM's direct small business support went to minority and women-owned businesses. These businesses were among the hardest hit by the pandemic, so it's critical they have access to the tools and assistance to remain competitive. By the way, before the pandemic, they were also the greatest rate of growth among small and mid-sized businesses in the nation. Do you agree that part of EXIM's mission is to support minority and women-owned business efforts to engage in international commerce?
Yes, Senator. In the 2019 reauthorization of the bank, I believe that Export-Import Bank has a mandate for small businesses, so to do business with small businesses.
So how would you help EXIM improve their performance when it comes to the issues of racial equity?
Thank you for that question. This issue of diversity and inclusion is a priority of mine. It's a very important issue, and I hope that when and if I am confirmed, to be able to basically bring that tone of the fact that diversity matters at the top and ensure that my XMOIG staff finds areas of opportunity when they do their work of audits, inspections, and evaluations with an eye towards diversity, inclusion, and this priority. I also would like to make sure that my own staff within XMOIG is empowered to think through these issues of diversity and inclusion and include them wherever possible for management of the bank to think through them.
Well, let me close by saying an IG's purpose is to make the agency they oversee more efficient and effective. And EXIM certainly has a lot of room to improve on making racial equity a greater reality. So we look forward to working with you upon your confirmation to make sure that happens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Menendez. Senator Tester of Montana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, and I appreciate both of you being here today for your respective positions. You both talked in your opening statements about being independent and objective, which I agree with 100%. The question is how will you work to protect your independence and fend off any sort of interference by the agency head or, quite frankly, one of us? Go ahead. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. To your point, independence is the heart of the role of an Inspector General, and I've said to others that but for that independence, an OIG is nothing but a paper tiger. I think developing a productive working relationship with the director of the agency is essential because at its core, contentious relationships often don't end up good for either side. So that's not to cede my independence or objectivity. In fact, it's for those moments where we might disagree on something. We can disagree without being disagreeable. And so I look forward to developing that relationship as well as I look forward to developing a productive relationship with Congress. So once again, my independence and objectivity will not be questioned, but that doesn't mean I don't listen to key stakeholders such as yourself.
I'll come back. Ms. Salehi?
Thank you, Senator. So within OIGs, we have professional standards that we have to abide by. For example, our auditors have the auditing standard that requires them to be independent of mind and appearance. And of course, if confirmed, if I am leading a group of auditors and that office, that applies to myself in that I have to conduct myself and my office in a way that is independent both in fact and in appearance. And so I plan on conducting myself in such a way.
So tell me what you would do. This is for both of you because it applies to both of you. Tell me what you would do if the director would stonewall you on information, because oftentimes, and I agree with you, Mr. Tomney, that it's good to have that relationship, but oftentimes they might not like your recommendations. They might not think they're fair. They might not think they're just. So what do you do when they stonewall you?
Thank you, Senator. It's true. I'm sure inspector generals are not necessarily the life of a party when they come walking in, but I believe that developing that relationship that is productive is important. If I am unable to get access to information. Access to information is fundamental to the work, and we can't conduct full, robust, and fair audits, evaluations, and investigations without it. If I am unable to work through within the agency, then there's alternatives such as speaking with folks in Congress.
Okay. Mr. Salehi, do you have anything to add?
My colleague and I see eye to eye, Senator. I believe that there are a number of legislations currently in front of Congress that are supposed to be, that the intent of them are to strengthen the inspectors generals to be able to do their work more independently and better. And the same if the constructive relationships that we have with the head of the agency does not work, and we have barriers such as access to information or access to the head of agency, I would certainly engage with your office and members of Congress to ensure that those barriers are known to you.
Yeah, I would hope you would do that, and I would hope you'd do that quickly, because you are our eyes and ears, and it's really important. I need you to answer this pretty quickly, and I think you can. The XM, you'll be overseeing 26 FTEs, I believe that's correct, about FHFA, about 121 FTEs. What role will the folks under you play in determining priorities?
For me, Senator, consulting with my staff about what needs to be done, especially the staff that's currently there and knows the bank best, would be my high priority. We engage in a risk-based process, and staff, along with all other stakeholders, decide on the work.
Senator, I echo my colleagues' comments as well, and a good leader will always listen to the subject matter experts and take that into consideration. Leaders should surround themselves with folks who tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
I want to thank you both for being here and putting yourself up for this job. I will tell you that some people in the Senate don't like the FHFA because some people don't like the 30-year fixed rate and mortgage, and I can tell you that some people don't like XM because they see it as supporting people who don't need support. I hope that does not stop them from voting for you, because we need your eyes and ears in these departments. We can have a debate about the other stuff at another point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tester. Senator Cortez Masto is recognized from her office from Nevada.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tomney, Ms. Salehi. Congratulations on your nominations. Mr. Tomney, let me start with you. Everybody's aware of Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac. They're household names for many Americans, but few folks are aware of the Federal Home Loan Bank system. The nation's 11 federal home loan banks are charged with meeting the affordable housing, the community development needs of the states and the communities they serve. So my question, Mr. Tomney, to you is, if confirmed as Inspector General, will you commit to take a fresh look at the distribution of work in the IOG and ensure that the FHLBs are given the appropriate level of meaningful oversight as outlined in their mission? And that includes each federal home loan bank's community lending plans.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I agree with you that if you stopped random people on a sidewalk, that most people would be able to at least be familiar with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac and generally speaking what they do, and that perhaps far few would understand what the federal home loan bank system is all about. So yes, Senator, if confirmed, I look forward to getting in the office, rolling up my sleeves, seeing where the current breakdown of resources are devoted, and taking a fresh look to ensure that not only are we looking at the federal home loan bank system, but to make sure that to the extent that we do reporting on it, that those reports are meaningful to key stakeholders like yourself. And I look forward to working with you and your staff if confirmed to do so.
I appreciate that, because I have concerns that the federal home loan banks are not meeting the needs of all their communities. Let me just give you an example. In previous years, only one bank has any goal for Native Americans in the community. And so I'm hopeful that you will really take a look at that and be transparent and provide the information Congress we need to be able to work with the federal home loan banks as well. So thank you for your comment. Let me touch on cybersecurity very quickly, and I know some of my colleagues have. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac rely heavily on counterparties and third parties to originate and service the mortgages enterprises purchase and provide operational support for a wide array of professional services. This reliance creates an opening for cyber criminals. So these counterparties and third parties would be under your office's oversight. How do you see the OIG office monitoring and reporting on cybersecurity during the selection and procurement process of these counterparties and third-party service providers?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. Certainly the counterparties and third-party risk area has dovetailed extensively into the cyber security world. If confirmed, I look forward to getting up to speed on exactly what has been done so far. There are certain statutory reports that OIGs within the government do. I'm not convinced that that is nearly enough, and so if confirmed, I can commit to you that that will be one of the focus areas for me, because as you state, the risk is so very high, particularly with the volume of NPI and PII information that is out there that could be the subject of criminal actors.
Thank you. And then when appropriate, can you promise transparent and accessible delivery of your findings to Congress?
Senator, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Salehi, same question. When appropriate, can you make sure that transparent and accessible delivery of findings to Congress as well?
Absolutely, Senator, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Salehi, the Export-Import Bank is important to Nevada companies. 26 companies in Nevada use the Ex-Im Bank to sell their products to buyers abroad. You have extensive experience at the Ex-Im Bank. If confirmed as the Inspector General, what barriers do you expect to have as an IG, and what will you need to overcome those barriers?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Obviously, I am not currently at the bank and only have access to their public information. And in reviewing those public reports and information, I can't identify any specific issue currently that they may be facing. However, in general, as we have talked about here before, the general barriers for any IG would be, for example, lack of funding if the agency program or the agency has grown in size, and for example, their OIG has not grown in the same, in the same level and extent. That would be an issue, because that would hinder the ability of the OIG to produce meaningful and impactful evaluations and audits. Another barrier would be if there is a lack of access to information or to the agency head. It's very important to have those constructive relationships with the agency head. I guess lastly, I will mention also the issue of independence, which we discussed before, and that would be a barrier if not recognized by the agency.
So, and I know my time is almost up, but let me just ask you this, because you both talk about independence. I've heard my colleagues asking you questions about how important is it to be independent and get the independent facts that you need. It's crucial to be able to carry out the functions of your jobs. Isn't that correct?
That's correct, Senator. It is a core value for us in OIGs to be independent of mind and to look at facts in a nonpartisan fashion and lead the facts wherever they take us.
Thank you. I know my time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cortez Masto. That's it for the hearing. Thank you to both our nominees for being here today and providing testimony. It was a productive discussion of the issues, and thanks for your candor. I hope to move forward quickly on Ms. Salehi and Ms. Salehi's nomination, Mr. Tomney's nominations. For senators who wish to submit questions for the hearing record, those questions are due at the close of business on Friday, December 10th. To the nominees, we'd like to have your responses back to us by noon on Tuesday, December 14th, 2021. Thank you again for your testimony. With that, the hearing is adjourned.